Welcome, everyone. My name is Mike McQueen, and this podcast is called For the Love of Libraries, empowering librarians to lead with confidence in the age of AI. I'm so excited to have Kate Hall with us. Kate, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Mike. I am so excited to be here because I could talk about AI and why everyone should love libraries probably for weeks at a time.
Awesome. Well, and I really enjoyed just chatting with you before we started right now because I have a good kind of feeling for your background and everything. But why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit
Sure.
about your professional background and maybe your connections with AI.
Sure. So I am the executive director at the Northbrook Public Library, which is a public library about 40 minutes north of downtown Chicago. My library serves a community of 35,000 people, and we have one building, and we have a very healthy, almost $10 million budget. I have been working in libraries now for over a quarter century, which feels wild,
Yeah.
and have worked in all public libraries, but primarily I've been an administrator for the last 15 years, but prior to that was a children's and teen librarian and a children's manager. So have a great love for our youngest patrons and have had the opportunity to see how libraries have grown and evolved. And I think that um, one of the things that I've gotten to do in my time in libraries is see like Web 2.0 happen. And now we have AI happening. I remember going to the library as a kid with card catalogs. So libraries have evolved so much over my lifetime. It's exciting to see how they continue to iterate. I also, in addition to my full-time job at the Northbrook Public Library, I also am fortunate to be the co-author of two ALA Editions books, the Public Library Director's Toolkit and the Public Library Director's HR Toolkit. My great passion is giving people the tools and training they need to be successful in their roles in library, specifically around leadership and management and HR. And I think AI can play such a positive role in it. My assistant director has said that I'm an AI hobbyist, which I really love that term. So that's how
Yeah,
I
I haven't
think of
heard that.
myself. Yeah, I
Okay.
think of myself as an AI hobbyist. I am not an expert. I like to tell people I'm a librarian, not because I know everything, but because I know how to find everything. And
Hmm.
AI to me is so exciting because it can help you find everything. And I think it also is something that is so we need to understand in the library sphere because we as librarians help people understand how to look for and find accurate information so we can help them with the nuances that exist in AI. I don't think it's all good or all evil. I think it's a tool and we have to figure out how to use it. And so I have been doing a lot of that work myself, and we're now working on integrating it within my organization. And as you can imagine, there's a wide spectrum of where staff are feeling and certainly patrons as well
Hmm.
around all of these changes.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. There's just so much to it. All right, before we dive too far into the questions, let's start with a favorite memory of you. I mean, the show is called For the Love of Library, so can you share a memory of either a librarian or a library or a colleague or anything that connects to a love of libraries?
So I'm going to tell a story that isn't mine, which might feel like a little bit of a cheat, but it is about my sister.
Okay.
And my sister, I've been a librarian, right, for a very long time. She's 3 years younger than I am. And when I was in library school, she wanted to get, I had bought her the new the first three Janet Ivanovich books. This is how long ago it was. They had just come out, and she wanted to get the next one. But she was afraid to go into the library because she had had some really negative experiences
Mm.
as a middle schooler at our local
Mhm.
library. And so she really thought libraries were not welcoming and friendly places. And so she would call me up. I didn't work at this library that she was going to and have me actually tell her where to find it. I'm like, I can call. They can set it aside for you. You just have to go up to the desk. She's like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want to go
Mm.
in and get it.
Mhm.
So I walked, I told her, I'm like, okay, you go in, you're going to turn right. This is where the mystery books are, blah, blah, blah. She's like, okay, I got it. She's like, okay, I'm hanging up now. I'm going inside. I will call you back. And she comes back and calls me like 5 minutes later. I'm like, how'd it go? She's like, they moved the mystery section, so I just left. And I said, what? I said, well, good. Didn't you ask? She's like, I'm not going to talk to anybody in there. I'm not going to do it. She's like, I'm going to just go to the bookstore and I'm going to buy it. And I said, um, that's a horrible decision. You're a college student with no money. That is not a good decision. She's like, I can't do it. The negative experience she had resonated so strongly with her for so many years that she was
Mm,
having this. Now, fast forward, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, and she has my niece, and she's like, I need to go get her library card. We need to be going to the library. And
mm,
she goes in, she's in a new town, she and her husband have moved, to a different suburb, and she goes into the library and she gets the library card and they go to the children's department and they get a bunch of stuff to check out. She called me and said, oh my gosh, we just had the most wonderful experience.
aw,
They were so friendly and they invited us to come to
yeah.
story time and we checked out a bunch of board books. And I was like, don't make sure you disinfect those because board books are pretty gross. Anyway, that's just and she said, but this was like a complete turnaround because she loved me. She thought I was fine, but libraries in general were not a place that she felt welcomed until
Yeah.
that narrative changed. And so I think that we all, like, I remember my childhood librarians. I remember librarians when I was in high school, in college. We don't realize the impact that we all have. And one interaction can totally destroy or create a really positive image of libraries. And so I think about how all of us that show up each and every day to do that work is because of the love we have for libraries and wanting to instill that love in others. So I know that that was a little bit of a cheat,
Yeah. No,
but
that's great.
that's
I
my
mean,
favorite one.
it's perfectly aligns. I mean, the goal is to describe the love and to go from that challenges and poor feeling and
Yeah.
reputation of what she had to suddenly the opposite. And it's funny because I'm sure a lot of listeners can relate to that, including me. I mean, I had a librarian in high school that just, I struggled anyway in school, and I had a handful of really, really bad experiences with that person. And um, I was so surprised once I became a librarian, but I thought, like, man, I'm going to make sure that I do my best to make
To
nothing
never
but
be like
positive
that.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, to turn it around. So that's neat that it's really important as a parent too, because you want to teach your children that positive stuff that connects to literacy and libraries and
Correct.
everything that comes with it. So good for
100%.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dive right into the heart. We'll come back to a few other questions, but one of the chapters in my book is called Literacy Reborn. At least right now, it's called Literacy Reborn, and it addresses the impact that AI is having quickly on information and even the need to redefine literacy. We've done that over the decades anyway, but now with AI coming, AI is quickly already changing content as we know it.
Yep.
And let's first kind of talk about what are your thoughts about that, like with how quickly information is getting influenced through generative AI in particular. So
Yeah, I think
what are your
that,
thoughts about it? And
oh, I have so many thoughts, so many thoughts. I'm going to try to condense them into a manageable amount of time, Mike, because
okay,
for me, it is our human brains, like okay, so I'm going to go and do a little like armchair neuroscience. I'm a librarian, though. I'm not a
oh, good,
neuroscientist.
that's all right.
Uh,
I love it.
so we know that we have this beautiful prefrontal cortex that, helps us to think and reason and logic. But we also know that the prefrontal cortex is still pretty young in terms of human development. We also have the amygdala, which provokes our, fight or flight response. And our brain has not caught up to the fact that we are not still fighting, you know, bears in order to
Right.
get food. And
Okay.
so when we have this volume of change, it is very hard just neurologically for our brains to keep up. Our brains also crave pattern and repetition. And so the level of change that we have seen in our lifetime I had when I was in elementary school, my our first computer was an Apple IIe. We had
Right.
an Atari. Like those felt so cutting edge. And now I look at those decades later and it's like those look so dated now. That's how fast things are changing. So I think when we think about AI and generative AI and the impact, I don't know that our brains can even fully comprehend all of the impacts that are happening. And I think at least I try to learn everything about everything. And because it's changing so quickly, you can't. And so I have
Yeah.
shifted for myself how I look at this. I am looking at it as through the lens of what are my core values and what is important to me and how does AI align with that and how does it contradict it? And then how do I want to interact with it? Because if I try to understand the sum total of everything, my brain just starts exploding. So I think that it is a challenging time. Change is hard. People's brains don't want to change, and yet change is happening all around us all the time. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for how much work our brains have to do to adapt to those changes and how much work our brains have already done to adapt to
Mm-hmm.
all of the changes that have happened. Um,
Well, yeah, I mean, and right now, like, one of the biggest challenges we have as information experts is to help our patrons and our students learn how to detect, information that may be, AI generated, how to like evaluate the source of the information. And this is part of the whole, redefining what literacy is because it's I don't really know the neuroscience behind the challenges of that, but it's becoming more and more difficult to be able to evaluate information because, you know, I mean, tools, generative AI tools are embedded in everything now, every word processing, email, like, and more and more content, even when you see a website that says person's name has written it, you don't know if, that person, how much they used AI when they to help generate it. And then if on top of all that, if you apply this really big movement of the importance of learning how to collaborate with AI and use it like as a partner. And
yeah.
so it's all kind of spilling into this difficulty to know what reading and writing and literacy really means. What are your thoughts then about the challenges that relate to how to differentiate and evaluate the information?
So I think that we live in an age right now where unfortunately people are not great at critical thinking, at separating out um, accurate information from inaccurate information. We've been seeing that for a while. And even librarians, we hold ourselves up on this pedestal sometimes, I think, and think, oh, well, we know when information is inaccurate. But there have been a number of tests done that show when an incorrect meme is posted on social media that librarians agree with, we spread it just as much as people that spread other information that it's not accurate, like quotes. Because in order to stop and fact check something, it takes time. And again,
Mm,
the flow of information is so massive, we have to slow down. Um, there's this book that I read a couple
mhm.
years ago called How to Calm Your Mind by Chris Bailey. And it talks about doing a dopamine detox. And I read this like, coming out of the pandemic, my brain was
Mm,
on overdrive all the time. I was so burnt out. And I read this and I did a social media fast. And
okay.
it was amazing for several months. And then I just kept continuing it. And even now, I go on LinkedIn, but that's the only social media platform that I now visit
Hmm.
because I find my brain works better when it's not being fed
Yeah.
that constant barrage of information. So we have to slow
Me
down,
too. Me too. I'm almost identical.
right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, Social media, I am all for how it connects people, but I also think that we're just starting to see some of the negative impacts that it can have, right? On mental health, on
mhm.
productivity. And yet it is also something that is needed. So we have to figure out how to use it in ways that are healthy. And I think the same is true of AI. How can we use it in ways that are healthy? And how can we pause and fact check? So I now, with my, I
Oh,
mostly use
Kate,
Claude. Oh, yes.
Kate, I lost you for a second there. Could you say that
Oh,
last part again?
yeah. And my computer is saying that your bandwidth is low. I don't know if that,
Yeah,
okay.
it's probably, I don't know. I saw that message
Okay.
too.
So, um, one of the things that, I have been doing, because I think we need to be pausing and fact checking a lot more, is I use Claude. That is the AI tool that I turn to most because I think that they have the best privacy protections right now. And and I think that that changes frequently, so you have to constantly check. But
Right,
I have trained the model that I use to always provide citations. So I would ask for it in every prompt I did. And please cite where you got this from. Please cite how you determined this
right.
answer and give a link. And then I would check all of those links. That takes
Yeah.
time. And we have to
Yeah. Yeah.
encourage people to do that.
Yeah, it's tricky though because it's not so easy. Like Perplexity is my first go-to tool, and
Okay.
they've been like they call themselves an answer engine, not a search engine, and they've been doing that from the beginning. And the challenge though with that is that depending, especially if you do deep research, you can it's unbelievable at how many resources it can give you, and the improvements recently, especially, you know. You could have to sift through hundreds of sources that it
Correct.
might find, and you're right. Like if I think when you know I don't want to use too many dates and stuff, but I would say in mid to late 2024 is when so often the results would be questionable. Like I
Yes. There
found this
was
all the
much more
time.
hallucinating.
Yeah, the content it would create would be wrong, but then I would check. I did it all the time too. I would check the sources it gave me, and then I'm like, this isn't
Yeah.
even right. It still has
Yeah.
problems, but the growth and the accuracy, I just like within the early part of 2025, like some of the advanced and the new versions of these models, and I pay for three of them, I pay $20 a month, so I get a little
Yep.
bit better stuff.
Yep.
But I thought, well, that's changed already. And then we're not even talking about deep research because,
Right, right. And I
a
feel
few
like that is
hundred.
now just starting to evolve.
Hmm.
And I'm seeing that change like over the last few months. I like to do like take the same prompt and run it like again and again. So,
Hmm.
like I used to do that with
Like over time,
images.
like over
Yes.
time. Okay,
Hmm.
yeah. To
Just to
compare it
see
before and after.
yep. Which is really helpful to me because then I can see how is it evolving and then also sometimes devolving and then re-evolving.
Hmm.
So I like the phrase trust but verify. We shouldn't
Hmm.
be taking anything that AI is giving us as 100% true. Just like we shouldn't be taking, like I tell people when I teach classes about, being a library director, I said, yes, I have written a book. Yes, I have been doing this for almost 2 decades. And that doesn't mean I know everything or that I get everything right. You should trust but verify.
Right.
Um, we're all human. AI isn't, but AI was created by humans. Don't assume that everything churning out, but we want things fast.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
again, we have to
That-
figure out how to slow down, which I haven't
Yeah.
quite figured out yet. So I don't have the answers.
Yeah. Well, part of what I wrote about, and I don't know if I don't think I wrote this in the Literacy Reborn chapter. I think it was a different chapter, but and I waffled back and forth what to title this section about because initially I called it the death of search engines. Like, and I still probably will call it that because I'm pretty convinced that the days of using search engines are almost gone because it's so much faster and people are lazy
Yes.
by nature. They're going to want to just
Yes.
use chatbots to get the
Correct.
information. So, and then the
And I am
inherent problems.
actually pushing back on the lazy narrative. I don't think
Tell
that
me.
we're lazy. I think that our brains are overwhelmed with information and it's
Hmm.
trying to put everything into a box. And because it's coming so fast and we can't possibly sort, like if you're like trying to sort, it's like if you love the I Love Lucy episode where she's at the factory and trying to sort stuff and she um and it's like some type of
Oh yeah, yeah,
candy, the chocolates, and then she can't get it fast enough. So then she starts shoving them in her mouth because she can't get to it. We're trying to keep up with a speed that our brains can't.
yeah.
And so we need to stop and be more thoughtful. And
Well,
again,
and
super
yeah,
hard to do.
but you make me think of another thing that kind of supports what you just said. Uh, I mean, I've always been an advocate for using technology to be more efficient, and
Yes.
I've gotten really good. Like keyboard shortcuts are a good example. Like
Oh my
when I learned
gosh.
about keyboard
Right?
shortcuts, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do this so much faster. Bam, 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 bam,
Yeah.
bam, bam.
Like I don't need to
So
touch the mouse. This is awesome.
yeah, yeah. So to some people it could come across as in and I sometimes joke about that. Oh, I'm just lazy. Let me do it the fast way, and then but you're right. In reality, and that's the whole heart of why technology can be helpful is if it can increase efficiency. But there's also this part of, and I keep hearing this with a lot of AI experts, is yes, it's going to save us tons of time, but we naturally just refill that time with other
We work
things.
more now when we do
Yeah,
things 100 times more efficiently than we did 50 years ago. We are
yeah,
working more.
right.
Like we
That's
just will
tricky.
keep filling
Yeah,
it up. I mean, also part of that is the American culture, and that is not
yeah,
100% true everywhere in the world, but that
right.
is something.
Hmm.
Because how are we, like, let's be efficient so maybe we can have more meaningful interactions. That's why we, for
Hmm.
instance, implemented RFID at my library, and my staff were very nervous. They're like, we're not going to have
What
enough
did you
work to
say?
do. I'm like, oh,
RFID?
RFID, so radio frequency identification, so
Okay.
that we could not have to physically check in the books, that they would just be scanned.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
It made a huge difference. And I told staff, we're doing this so you can spend time on what matters, on building those relationships, which is something that only we can do. We want to build relationships with our patrons. So we're trying to make this more efficient so that you can do things that only you are able to do. And I think
Right.
that's something we can look at and think about how can we do the same with AI?
Right. Yeah, and coming back to that challenge of filling up the time. I mean, I one good example of that is we have a display, a wall display that shows there's a service called Bookshare that if you're legally blind and you're a student, you get the service for free. And there's like 1.4 million books or 1.2 million books available that you can download digitally for free. And
That's
they
awesome.
have 50 categories of topics, just like, genres and just every kind of
Yeah,
topic you can think of. Well, in this display, I wanted to show all the topics, but I wanted to include a little caption. So I copy and pasted the list of all those 50 topics into, I think I used Gemini. And because it could handle spreadsheets, this was a while ago, and it was the only one
right,
that could really handle file management. And then I asked it to, I gave it really difficult, specific directions on how I wanted these descriptions to be written so I could use it
right.
in the display. And, I wanted it to be teen friendly language. I wanted it to, be so short,
Yeah.
all these requirements. And
You
then
wanted it to
seconds later,
slay, right? You wanted it to slay.
that's right. You have the teen lingo, I see.
Oh no,
Um,
my 13-year-old niece would be horrified that I just said that.
along with every other teen probably.
Yeah.
That's so funny. But yeah, so literally, I mean, I think I spent an hour crafting and fine tuning it, figuring out what it was, but it saved me probably dozens of hours of time trying to type everything perfectly. And there were so many things I didn't even think about to include in these little descriptions in the language. It was just really wonderful. And so that comes back to the point we're talking about, you know, so then what did I do? I didn't, like I just moved on to the next thing right away, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it saved me all this time and it's great. And now what do I do? So it didn't like, there's this fallacy that AI is going to save us all this time for doing everything. And it does save time, but our natural reaction is just to fill that back up. I mean, I think there's a lot of positive.
With sometimes more busy work,
It
right?
can be, that's right. Yeah, it can be. But I mean, I think in the big picture of it at the end of the day, it when that stuff happens, it's better than what it was before because now I have, this
100%.
wonderful display that I wouldn't have been
Right.
able to do before. But so I'm not saying it doesn't have wonderful benefits to it, but it's just people may not really think about those other implications to it.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think it's about us being thoughtful then about what we're doing with that. So I'll give you an example from this morning. Um, we had a First Amendment audit happen at my library, which happens frequently at my library.
First
And
Amendment audit.
oh, a First Amendment audit, yes. It's where someone
Okay.
comes in. Oh, you probably don't get this much in schools. They come in recording and saying, making sure, like going around and like asking staff questions and trying to
Oh,
get us
yeah.
to kind of provoke a reaction to say, like, oh, you're not allowed to record here, but they are legally. And then they pull out stuff and they're hoping that the police will be called so that it will create, kind of like a moment that they can post on
Holy cow.
YouTube. And this has
Oh boy.
become very frequent in our
Wow.
area, in the Chicagoland area. And so this happens, but we have some staff and this was a slightly different take on it. And the staff handled it beautifully, but it's upsetting because someone is getting in their face and trying to get them to respond in a way that will, get clicks on YouTube. And um, and so we were just talking with them. It's also my board packet Friday. So we had to finish up my board packet. So I had been working on my director's report and it was like 95% done. But I had not had a chance to do like another read through of it before I sent it to my executive assistant to read through and put in the packet. So I opened up Claude and I said, hey, can you please read through this and tell me if there's any parts that don't make sense or if there's any obvious grammatical errors or things I need to clean up? It took it 2 minutes, if that, to do that. And I said, and then please give me a list. Like, don't actually update it, just give me a list of where these are. So I probably spent maybe 15 minutes, whereas before I would have spent maybe another hour reviewing and checking.
Hmm.
And there might still be mistakes in it, but I know it caught a number of things that I didn't have time then because we had to get the packet out and because I focused on this other thing that was much more important. It was more important to me to be able to talk and debrief with my staff and check in and make sure they were okay than to spend an extra hour editing my board report.
Mm-hmm.
But it allowed me to still give a better board report than if I hadn't done anything at all.
I mean, that ties into redefining literacy so well because writing and reading, and it's both of them, and it's just definitely a shift, and that's already quickly becoming the norm of how to, process a lot of information in a short
Hmm.
amount of time. Um, and the biggest problem that still I think keeps happening, and I think this is a big call for us as librarians to help is the need to make sure that we check, check the output, that we learn how to create the correct input, and the whole
Right.
prompt engineering is a little bit, I think, over. I think I don't really like the term prompt engineering. It's more like how do you
Um,
communicate to it?
can I share? So this is my take on prompt engineering, if I can
Okay,
share with you,
please,
because
yeah.
I don't feel like we're talking enough about this. AI is perfectly designed for librarians. We are taught how to ask questions and find out what is actually needed and then know where to search and how to gather the information. So to
Mm,
me, prompt engineering is just doing a reference interview.
mm,
And
mm,
we know the right way to construct, and I'm not talking about like doing a Boolean search, although those are great. I'm talking about we understand how to construct a question in a way that will get us the best possible results.
hmm.
And this is something that I don't think we're leaning into enough
Right.
because we have this amazing skill set that we can be teaching our patrons. I have a friend who's an environmental engineer, and we were talking about AI because it has a lot of negative environmental aspects to it because of the amount of
Right.
water consumption and um, which I think we need to be
Electricity.
talking about too. Yes, like
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, and and she was like, yeah, and I don't even get that good of results. And she's like, for instance, and she gave me this question that she asked. I said, oh, so part of it is how you're asking the question. So
Mm,
here's how I would have asked that. And she's like, oh my gosh, that was so much more
right, right.
detailed. That was so much better. And just like you said, I tinkered and tooled to get the answer I needed, but we are trained to know how to do that. And I think
Right.
that is a superpower that we as librarians have that we learned. I guess it's maybe more
Hmm.
of like a Batman-like superpower because we've learned it. It wasn't something because of a, radioactive spider or being an alien from another planet. We can use that to help our patrons do better, which in
Yeah.
turn will yield better outputs.
Well, and a very similar thing that we're experts at is the inquiry process, learning how to,
Yes.
ask the right questions, how to solve problems based off of what you're interested in, different types of questions, and just there's just so much to it. And that's also part of redefining literacy, about the implications of doing that with AI. Yeah, I'm a nonfiction nut. I mean, my passion for reading is nonfiction. I always prefer to read. I mean, I like fiction every once in a while.
Yeah.
And of course I love
But you
books and
just
I
want to
love
keep
reading, but
learning. You want to keep
yeah,
learning
that's right.
stuff. I
That's
love
right.
it.
And I mean, never before did I ever have an intelligence partner that I could ask some of the most difficult complex questions that were specific to my quirky needs that were ever changing, and they to to never feel bad about boring the person or repeating the questions or constantly you know varying what my needs are. um so it's just it's interesting about how that's going to continue to evolve in the
Yeah.
coming years, because I
It
follow
is
too
it is
much.
ever changing.
Yeah.
You were
Okay,
saying
let's.
that what do you follow too
Well,
much of?
I
I'm
was
really
I
curious
follow
now.
too much about like the advancements about how models are trained, and there's I follow too many YouTube. I watch too much on YouTube. I mean, a couple hours probably every day, even while I'm writing this book. Like it's
Yeah.
fascinating to me, and now like the latest the latest upcoming changes are um I forget the name of it now. I'm kind of having a little space here. It's artificial information. Like we pretty much the training process, all the
Oh, they've
internet
exhausted the
scraped.
information,
Yeah, yeah. It's
right?
so now
Now,
AI
our
being able
own
to
lived
create the information.
experiences, they're going to be craving that. They're going to be paying people
Hmm.
to share
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is good and
And I was
bad.
just this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this morning I was just listening to a podcast with Demis Hassabis. He's the co-founder of Google DeepMind. Google acquired DeepMind, and
Mhm.
so he's to me one of the world's leaders in AI development. And he was talking in his podcast about how um, AI is going to be training AI systems. We're in the age of agentic AI, so agents, AI systems
Mhm.
that can,
Yep.
know, do use tools and go out and do things
Yep.
on their own independently, and then come back, and now multi-agent systems where they can go off and do things with other agents. And
Right.
the next stage of advancements with intelligence is going to be these AI tools that are going to be kind of teaching each other about things that are faster than learning just from human information, like because they already have scraped the
Yeah.
entire internet, all the books or
Right.
whatever, everything's they've reached
Right.
their limit of what they can do. And now this is the next upcoming stage. Like, what the heck? How's that gonna influence information
Y-
and literacy? It's really hard to understand, but
Right. It's hard to wrap your head because it's so voluminous, right? It's
yeah,
like almost overwhelmingly huge. And my brain, I know my brain, when I tried, I have to like break it into little tiny chunks for my brain to really even
yeah,
understand a
hmm,
piece of it because it is um, overwhelming, which is why I think it's important that we keep talking about it and not
right,
assuming like we have all the answers. We don't have the
yeah,
answers, but that's why we need to keep talking about it. And I don't
hmm,
know if we'll ever have the answers, but we can at least talk about what challenges there are and what positives, because I do think it's both. I
Right.
don't think it's one or the other. I think it has both of those pieces in it.
Yeah, yes,
And that's
for
something I
sure.
struggle with of like, it's good and bad at the same time, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. One of my chapters is called blessings, and then the next one is called burdens.
Yeah,
It's just both, and
right.
it's just unbelievable. All right, let's move on to the next question.
Yeah.
Tell me about how specific things that relate to your community. What's going on with your community with AI? Are you guys doing any kind of workshops or people coming in asking questions about AI? And what does the scene look like for your community with AI?
Yeah, so in our community, our community is highly educated. We have a very high number of people with college degrees and masters that work typically in white collar fields. So they are very much, my former board president liked to say, we like to be on the cutting edge, not the bleeding edge. And so we do try to stay in front of things and be aware. But I feel like with the AI stuff, we are running just a few steps, if even that, maybe half a step ahead of our patrons. So we do programs on just understanding what is generative AI. We have a program coming up this summer that is about the sustainability impacts of AI. And
Mm,
we also have programs that we're doing where people can come in and try AI. Um, Northbrook has compared to other communities in the North Shore of Chicago, has a predominantly higher percentage of senior citizens. And these are people that are eager to still stay current with technology. Um, but that is a different audience than some of our, like 20 to 40 or 50 somethings that want to come in and they're like talking about this at work or maybe even involved with it at work and want to like have that higher level learning. So we have to kind of
mm,
have multiple levels while we ourselves are still trying to figure out how to use this as an
yeah.
organization. And so we do get people coming in and asking, like, well, what do you think about it? And is it good? Is it evil? And our staff, opinions really range. We don't
Mm,
have a formal, this is how you have to be presenting AI, because what we are leaning into as at my library is this is a nuanced conversation, and we want to create space to have deeper conversations around
mm,
this and not just
mm,
to present it as one or the other. And so we
yeah.
have, like, it's kind of funny, right? We have this, like, why AI is great and why AI is evil in terms of like the sustainability and in terms of what it can do to help you in your life in the same newsletter, talking about, at the same library. And I think it's important to present those varied perspectives and to present them for different levels.
Right,
Um,
right. Audiences.
yeah. So it
Yeah,
isn't
that's
like
so
just a
great.
one size fits all. I think
Yeah.
we have to be looking at this from a lot of different vantage points.
A lot of readers of my book and listeners to this podcast are from different types of libraries. So when you
Mhm.
say programs, are you talking about like
Oh,
workshops or what does a program
yeah.
mean in a public library?
Yeah. So in a public library, when I say program, I mean something where we are either having our staff do a formal presentation or hands-on learning, like a technology class, um, or we're bringing in an outside presenter who is a subject matter expert in, insert whatever topic it is.
Right.
So
Okay.
we have presented on AI with staff presenting. We have brought in outside presenters as well. And we've also done hands-on learning classes. And typically those classes are 45 minutes to an hour and a half long, depending on
Okay.
how much interaction there is, whether it's just a lecture versus whether everyone's at a computer and we're trying stuff. So we try to offer a wide variety of each of those for those different levels.
Okay.
In addition to all of the other, we do over 1,000 programs a year. So like this is
Holy
one
cow. Yeah.
subset of that. So we try to offer it at different times
Which is
and for
why
different
there's a job
audiences.
called programming librarian or more,
Correct.
multiple.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
it's neat. It's one of the joys of public libraries. And I think another example of how, public libraries have evolved over the years because programming is just such a
Yeah.
important big piece. And not, I mean,
Yeah.
I say that, but I guess I'm thinking about like innovative things that, because
Yeah.
programs have been around forever, but
But
the
what we're
variety that you guys
choosing to
have.
bring for
Yeah.
programs has
Yeah.
certainly changed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 20 years ago, we were teaching, hey, here's what, here's how to log in and create an email account. Probably not even
Yeah.
Gmail yet, I think 20 years ago. And, here is how, we were one of the first libraries that got a grant to get public internet stations in our area. And we used to teach classes on how do you get onto the internet and what do you do there?
Mm.
And this is
Right.
just the
Right.
next, to me, evolution of that
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
we're there to meet, like I always tell my staff, our job is to take the resources, the money that the public has entrusted to us, and turn it into the materials, programs, and services that the community is interested in. And
Mm.
programming is just one of the
Perfect.
ways we do that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Okay, two more questions for you. How do you like train your staff? Well, how do they
Oof.
how
Yeah.
if they're going to learn how to try to talk to patrons, what how do you help them learn?
So someone I worked with on a statewide committee, Alexandra Skinner at the Oak Park Library, coined this and uh, for this thing we were doing that I feel very much applies to AI. And she said, we're building the plane as we're flying it. And
Hmm.
that very much is how it feels to me. We are handling AI at my library. Um, we just had our staff development day last month, and we had an AI speaker. We had one last year. We have AI guidelines about it's not a formal policy, but here's how we approach it. Here's how it applies to our mission, vision, and values. But we
Right.
haven't said you must do it this way or you cannot do that. We don't have a formal like stance on AI. We feel like we
Mm.
are still learning. What we have it as one of our strategic areas of focus in our strategic plan, both learning for ourselves and how we can use it as an organization and learning for our patrons and providing information to them. So this is something that I absolutely think is critically important. And like I feel like we are still at the beginning stages of having conversation. Like it just takes time for us with our 100+ staff to make space for people to talk about where they're at. I have some staff that are horribly against it because of the intellectual property violations that happen during the training periods, which I think they have every right
Hmm.
to be upset about. I have many
Hmm.
staff that are, artists, like visual artists and writers, and they feel like, well, they just are stealing content. I don't disagree. And I also don't think AI is going anywhere. I also
Yeah.
think AI
I
has a
mean,
ton of bias. It has so much bias baked in, as
yeah.
do we all. And
Hmm.
so, from an EDI perspective, which is something that's another area of focus for us in our strategic plan, we
EDI,
want,
can you
yeah,
explain
so
that?
equity,
EDI?
diversity, and inclusion, and making sure that everyone that walks in our door, from staff to patrons, feels included and welcomed, and that we are representing all of the different groups in our community, you know?
Mm.
And so, doing that, recognizing that there isn't any one person or any one, you know, thought around AI in our community or on staff, we have to make space for those conversations, and that just takes time.
Mm.
So I I feel, like we are running, like I said, just like a half step ahead of our patrons. But I
Excuse me.
do think that what we're doing is not taking a one size fits all approach and that's so critical.
Mm.
And we're
Yes.
not also saying everyone has to be using AI and everyone better be, we're saying the staff that are excited about it, yeah, let's lean into that. The staff that aren't, let's listen to their concerns and let's talk about that
Mm.
and let's see what are some of the things we can push back on. What are like I have significant privacy concerns around a lot of the AI stuff. And we as librarians, patron privacy is such a core part of our work. But how does that intersect? And so no easy answers, but I think let's just keep having the conversations. And so I would say I don't feel like I feel like we are keeping pace, but not necessarily as out in the front as maybe some other libraries are, but I am happy with where we are because I think we're doing it thoughtfully and applying it to our, considering our culture, considering the mission, the vision, the values that we hold in our community, we are taking the appropriate steps to meet their needs and also think about it and how it intersects with our work here at the library.
I mean, the way you described it seems so common to so many other librarians that I talk to. Similar things like, but what how respectful you are to the librarians that um, just are against it or afraid of it, because
Yeah,
I think some people are like, well, it's not going away. Our kids are forced to, we need to help them learn how to use it, because otherwise, if you're in the whole world of work, I mean, everyone's, I guess, worried and threatened about how their job is going to change because of AI. And if they, don't understand how to use it, they're going to be, behind or ousted by someone that does. So that need you know, to have librarians help embrace it, is tricky because,
yeah,
yeah, you don't also want to, force anyone because, you know, people have their own respect their own needs or whatever. So
yeah.
it's
Well,
really
and
good to do it. All right, last
uh,
question.
can I add one
Sorry
more?
for
I
my
just because
stupid cough.
no, that's totally okay. I get it. I want to add one more thing to that. I have
Yeah.
found that when we tell people like, well, you just need to get on board or they're just behind the times, that does not invite a learning
Mm-hmm.
atmosphere.
That's
One
right.
of our
Yeah.
core values is lifelong learning at my library, and everyone learns in different ways and at different speeds, and we need to be respectful of that. Um, while not sugarcoating, like, yes, we are going to continue exploring AI and we want to talk about the challenges around it.
Mm,
Um, and I think often what I see, I saw this happen with like the Web 2.0 stuff like 20 years ago. It was like, oh, you have to learn about blogs, you have to learn about Facebook, you have to learn about it. And people were hugely resistant, and it was felt like we were dragging them. And
yeah.
and they were pushing back. Now we're saying, yeah, your feelings are valid.
Right.
Let's
Right.
talk about it,
Oh.
which
Oh.
right? It doesn't,
Yeah.
when people get defensive, it shuts down the receptors in your brain that allow you to learn. So why
Mm,
would we do that? It's only going to make
hmm.
everything harder for everyone.
Yeah, how ironic it is that, and especially it's a good comparison to bring up Facebook. It brings back a memory of when Facebook was popular with teens when it first came out. Our teens were
Mhm.
all into it,
Yeah,
and our staff had no idea when it first came out. They didn't know how popular it was. All of our students. I was at an alternative high school, and they were all using it, and there were problems in school because of what was
of
happening with it,
course.
right? So I gave
Like we
this.
see with Snapchat now or
Yeah,
with
or in
TikTok. Yeah,
everything, and
like
all. I mean, they keep changing. Teens and young adults, I think, are quick to move away from what all the
correct,
old people
correct.
are
I
doing.
think
But
Snapchat is
um,
actually probably old now, but yeah,
yeah, you're right. I think it is too. I don't know. I kind of lose
we're
track.
too
It's
old
hard to
to
keep
know
up,
what's
but
popular
yeah,
immediately.
I know. But yeah, but the ironic part of that time is, I mean, we needed to provide PD for our teachers because they needed to understand what it was.
Correct.
And the teachers that were resistant, like, I don't want to do this stuff. I don't want to learn about it. And the ironic part of it is a lot of times, a lot of those teachers, and I'm thinking of a few specific teachers that not too long later that didn't want to use it because they're worried about whatever, suddenly were somewhat addicted to it. They're playing Farmville and getting in trouble, and
Farmville. Yep,
and then
yep.
and then what happens a few years later after that? Suddenly we find out all this research showing how bad social media is for them, and then they're just like, "Rip, this is what I told you." Like, it's hard because you can't
Yep.
put your head in the sand, and
No.
you can't force people, but it's a fine balance to
Hmm.
inspire people to at
And
least learn.
yeah, we don't know also if what we're doing is the right thing generally until I would say like 10 or 20 years down the road. Like, is
Right.
what we're doing right now with AI the right thing? I don't know. I'm doing what I feel is the right thing based on my values and our organization's values and
Hmm.
what our community is asking for. But will I change my mind in the future and look back and be like, oh, that led us
Yeah.
to this? I think we have to just be constantly reassessing. you know?
Well, and I feel like librarians are the whole purpose of what we serve is to help people, help patrons. And there is
Yeah,
right now, there's a lot of our patrons that are in desperate need of help with AI. And
correct.
then it's only going to get a bigger problem and more need. And this is the whole purpose of this podcast. It's for the love of libraries because it can be a great way that we can save the day kind of thing. And it's going to take superheroes. That's one of my first I think my first chapter is called, superheroes needed. It's more about like librarians being superheroes because if
Right.
things keep progressing, once we reach artificial general intelligence and beyond, which is, a whole nother topic, but it's gonna there's gonna be a lot of people in society that will need help making sense of stuff. So,
Yeah.
okay, last question. Advice for a new librarian. So someone that's thinking about becoming a librarian or they just started, what advice would you give them?
In general or around AI?
Um,
Actually, I
Around
think,
AI or
okay.
both, whatever.
I
Anything.
actually think my answer is the same for both of these.
Okay.
So, I think that in order to be successful, you have to be a lifelong learner. I had one time on an exit interview, a staff member said they had just graduated with their degree and had gotten a full-time job, which we were very excited for them. You know, they'd been working for us part-time. And and they said, I have learned everything I needed to learn. And
Oh no.
and I was like, I thought just for a second, I'm like, I am so sorry for the library you're going to.
Mm,
Because I have been doing this and I learn something new every day. I don't ever think, I in fact feel like the older I get, the less I feel like I know anything.
yeah. That's
And
called wisdom. That's called
I
wisdom.
mean,
Really, yeah.
maybe,
Uh,
maybe. Uh, but yeah, I'll take that compliment. Sure. Yeah.
yeah.
So I think that for new librarians, you cannot know everything.
Yeah.
Even if you've just graduated and you have the most up-to-date theory and you've been in like, but what you can cultivate is a learning mindset, right? Which is
Mm,
very similar to, right, Carol Dweck's growth mindset.
hmm.
I think that that is the only way to truly be successful in this field is to be comfortable with change and to be willing to learn new things and adjust. And
Yeah.
if you do both of those things, whether in general or with AI, you're going to have a successful career
Mm,
because what libraries that do best is change to our adapting needs, right?
mm,
I mean, when I first started in libraries and it was ebooks are going to destroy libraries.
right.
Ebooks have not destroyed libraries. Ebook pricing has been challenging for libraries, but
Yeah.
ebooks themselves have not destroyed libraries. Back in the 60s, when audiobooks first started becoming a thing, it was, oh my God, everyone's going to stop reading. Audiobooks are evil.
Right.
They're awful. It's horrible. Audiobooks we recognize now, especially for individuals with dyslexia or ADHD, can be incredibly helpful. We know that people can listen to audiobooks and develop really good comprehension skills and develop vocabulary. We have to be willing to learn and adapt. And that is where the true
Hmm.
success lies. And as a new librarian, the more you are willing to lean into learning, the more you will succeed.
That was wonderful. What a great way to end this talk. Thank you so much for talking with us and for sharing all your insights and everything. How can someone find you? Tell us a little bit about your services. I know that you've written some books and you speak, and so how can people find you and what do you have to offer?
Um, Well, as you can tell, I do like to talk. So I do offer a number of different trainings. Only a couple right now on AI. Most of them are on leadership and HR and customer service.
Okay.
Uh, and I do weave in some AI stuff into those.
Okay.
And so you can find me on LinkedIn. If you go to LinkedIn, I'm Kate-Hall-Libraries. You can also find me um, on my book website, which is the librarydirectorstoolkit.com. And that is where you can also find an email for me, which is just info@librarydirectorstoolkit.com. I do have speaking, different things that I do speaking on, and um, love just getting the chance to talk with people. One of my love languages is spreadsheets and policies and procedures.
I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say that. That's amazing.
It is just my
Spreadsheets and policies and procedures. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
because I think if you have a strong foundation, everything else is a little bit easier. Um,
Oh, that's awesome.
so I have a spreadsheet for just about everything. I just texted my hairdresser last week because I went to Niagara Falls recently and she's going, and I texted her my spreadsheet with all of the different places and the costs and when things are open. And she's like, "Are you a travel agent?" I'm like, "No, I'm a librarian."
Hmm.
So I love being able to share those resources for people. There's a number of resources on my website, but that's also something that I'm, always happy to share those. I think we're in a sharing profession and I love doing that. And yeah, I think I can't think of anything else. Those are the best ways to get in touch with me. And I hope to hear from people um, and keep talking about these, I think, challenging, but also potentially inspiring topics and ways that we can use um, our knowledge as librarians to make our communities stronger, even in the
Yeah.
face of this unrelenting change.